Hi, Tommy Heffernan from Precision Microbes here. In this video I want to look at a concept of leaky gut in horses. Okay, people will think this is just another marketing video, but this video is about kind of hypothesis and kind of what I've learned. The science is ever evolving in the equine gut space, like all animal species, but I think it's been very interesting to look at the concept of leaky gut, what might be causing it, and obviously seeing the results that I've seen with Precision Microbes. So I want to take you through that phase of thinking, and I think it's quite exciting when we look at the industry, we look at some of the challenges, and maybe leaky gut is a concept. Now, I'm also very aware, I'm going to fill this screen with writing, but I'm very aware when you talk about the microbiome, there's this hype cycle where you're in this phase of everything's about leaky gut or everything's about the microbiome. It's not. There's loads of factors there, but it is a very interesting concept when we look at, as I'll talk about, evolutionary medicine in a while. Essentially, when we talk about leaky gut, here's a diagram that I robbed off the internet. When we look at gut level, essentially, we look at cell apposition. We want nice cellular apposition. That's really important from a digestive point of view. When we've leaky gut, it's just as it describes. And when we go into the gut and we think about a healthy digestive tract at cellular level, the gut microbiome is really important. So the gut microbes, as a horse, as a hindgut fermenter, play a really, really important role because they regulate digestion, they produce a lot of metabolites. People would have heard me talk about postbiotics before, that are involved in, at a very cellular level, even trans-electrical resistance, these proteins that keep cells together. And we also know that the microbes in the gut play a very, very important role in immune function. And this is across all animal species. So we know that 70% of the equine immune system's in the gut. So in a nice, healthy digestive tract, and particularly the hindgut, we've got the right microbes, we've got a healthy gut microbiome, regulating digestion, regulating immune function, and providing protection against pathogens. What happens with leaky gut? So when we've got leaky gut and inflammation, and that often occurs, now it's very hard, I'll talk about maybe a little bit of the research that I've been doing. It's very hard to find conclusive papers that say this or that. So I've been piecing bits of the jigsaw. That's science for me, from different species, and I'll talk about what I've learned. But essentially when you have leaky gut, what we'll see is, the studies will show is a reduction of diversity of gut microbes, okay? We'll talk about what might be causing that. And because of that, you have all the knock-on effects, including the mucin layer that protects the gut, that trans-electrical resistance here I talked about. I should use the same color. That's weakened. And one of the big factors with leaky gut can be its effect on immune dysregulation. And this has been measured in mice, people, dogs, cats, horses, pigs, you name it. We've seen where gut inflammation, particularly chronic inflammation, causes a dysregulation to the immune system. Now, if 70% of the immune system's gut-based, well, that's a real problem. Where it also gets very interesting is that, well, we know that the gut and the brain are connected. This is my brain here. We know the gut and skin are connected. Metabolic health is related to the gut. If we look at inflammation, there's a huge amount of factors. Now you can say that, okay, well this is back into the hype cycle here, but it is all the evidence across all species, particularly when you look at the human stuff, and I'll talk about that. There's a lot of evidence, and a lot of the pathways, a lot of the chemicals, a lot of neurotransmitters are very, very similar in a lot of mammals. And so when we look at these things, there's definitely cross-references that I think are interesting. Okay, so when we have leaky gut, it is as described. I might leave diagnostics and diagnosing leaky gut because I've been trying to read up on that, and if I could spell it, there we go. I've been trying to read up on diagnostics, and it is difficult to do sometimes. But okay, why is leaky gut? It's kind of a generalized term, but why is this inflammation, chronic inflammatory condition in the digestive tract of such importance? Well, I really find the human side of it interesting. And if we look back on humans and we look at one of the big challenges we've seen, chronic disease, non-communicable chronic disease go like that, particularly over the last 50 or 60 years, we've seen infectious disease go down. So we have this new challenge, particularly in developed countries. There's some really interesting research work, and this is data that was produced by, I think, the Human Genome Project, looking at the diversity of gut microbes in traditional lifestyle populations versus developed countries. We've seen this massive shift across and a narrowing. And that reduction of diversity and narrowing does play into this idea of leaky gut. And okay, human's not a horse, but if we look at studies on mice, where a lot of the human stuff started, we look on dogs and cats, and we look even, there's some work on horses comparing, some studies comparing wild horses, zoological horses and domesticated horses, and again, showing a shift in the diversity of the gut microbiome and a narrowing. So that is interesting on all species, okay? Why is that important? Well, it comes back to this idea, I suppose, of evolutionary medicine, okay? And this is kind of trying to figure out where we came from and what we were doing in the past that was good for us. So obviously medicine has evolved through antibiotics, vaccines, and all the magical stuff that's happened. But we do see challenges, and now there's a real conversation around, well, you know, what are the factors that we were doing, looking at diet and behaviours and stress and all those things that led to a healthy microbiome and traditional lifestyle populations versus what we do. And diet is huge. Okay, so diet and stress are the big ones we talk about. And why that's important, because I think if we look at dogs and if we look at our horses, from an evolutionary medicine point of view, we look at horses as traditionally grazing animals, the type of forages they were grazing, and the diet will, so if we look at the gut microbiome, I said this was going to become a very busy slide. If we look at the diet that goes into the gut, particularly in hindgut fermenters, well, that has a massive, massive impact on the gut microbiome, the microbes that are in the digestive tract, and can sway either way. So obviously we look at horses as grazing animals, hindgut fermenters, diversity of forages going in there, utilising 60-70% almost of their energy in the hindgut from microbes in the hindgut breaking down fibre. So what has happened with horses? What has been the shift? I mean, I'm not giving out about what we're doing. I'm just saying there has been a natural shift. That's why we enjoy horses, from racing to sport horses to people, pleasure horses. That's, you know, how we get enjoyment out of horses. But we're using horses more for performance, and that performance requires inputs to get an output. So they're exerting more energy. And we've seen the introduction of a lot of hard feed. So particularly starches. And if again, I think I read something like 50, I produced a white paper on equine gut health, and read 50 papers looking at various things. And again, you have to, for me anyway, it's very useful to look across all the different species and the commonalities, and then really down at a cellular level understand what's happening. And is there some research on the human side that we can actually think about, well, what's happening with horses? And so this is all it is. This is a hypothesis or just thinking out loud. Yeah, so there is research papers showing a shift in the gut microbiome across all species. And we are seeing increasing issues with gut health. They can be a little bit difficult to diagnose. Now, sometimes they can be very obvious that the horse has, you know, got loose feces, they're not maintaining condition, but then they may also be quite subtle. So when we look at evolutionary medicine, the changes, so diet and stress are big in humans, and diet and stress in horses. When we put animals through competition, transport, that's all stress. But again, that's why we enjoy performance animals. So I think what I've been seeing is a lot of horses presenting with very, you know, obvious signs. So the obvious signs can be diarrhea or loose feces. And condition. So just really simple ones that are not maintaining condition. Again, you know, getting full workups, getting scoped, getting checked, getting wormed, all the sort of usual things that will be done when you see diarrhea and condition loss. But in these horses where everything's been checked, we've seen a lot of success with Precision Microbes complementary feed. Now, knowing the metabolomics of what we're doing, it makes a lot of sense. So I think that leaky gut is a big contributing factor, be it the obvious ones to maybe the lower grade ones. And this is, I suppose, why I love talking to people who are using Precision Microbes, both vets and horse owners, because they'll talk about simple things like skin, behavior, and, you know, overall sort of the horses are more comfortable themselves. Because what leaky gut can do is it can affect brain and behavior. We know that across all species trials that that evidence is there, and there's increasing evidence. More work needs to be done on this. Again, if you have a leaky gut, some of the most obvious symptoms of it can be a dry and dull coat. We see that again across species, because if we think about digestion, we think about the absorption of nutrients, particularly things like the short chain fatty acids, postbiotics, well, they play a very important role in skin health. Again, metabolic health is highly driven by gut health, and if we've got low-grade inflammation in the digestive tract, well, it can have a massive impact on overall immunity. So, even in these subtle cases, I find it very interesting to listen to people. And I think, of course, this is a marketing video, but marketing is about whether you believe in something or not, and I really do. I think in a lot of horses, there's low-grade leaky gut, and that's the question that I think how we diagnose it and how we can get better at that, certainly. A lot of people are looking at, poo samples, dung samples to check diversity, and I'm not sure we're there yet, even in humans, to kind of see what diversity is there, what's missing, and what we need to put back in. The big factors, of course, when it comes to leaky gut are diet and stress. We do need to use hard feed and starches from a performance point of view, but they can have an impact, just like humans. I think if you look on the human side, a lot of it can be linked to ultra-processed foods, really highly processed, starchy, sugary foods, all the stuff we all like. That has a very negative impact on the gut. So when we're feeding a lot of starches and a lot of grains to horses from a performance point of view, it may be impacting the gut microbiome. What is interesting again, and this is only very much a theory, when you look at humans, mice studies, we're not hindgut fermenters, we still need fiber. Fiber is very important. Where they've introduced fiber, it can only bring the microbiome so far because the diversity is lowered. But where they've actually used fermented foods and live microorganisms, stuff like that, they have actually improved diversity over time. And they've done this in multi-generational mice studies. Again, a horse is not a mouse, I know, but I think I'm learning some really interesting things. The main concept that I think I want to bring is that low-grade leaky gut is probably an issue in a lot of horses. Obviously, from a Precision Microbes point of view, we're seeing results in that space, even though it's a complementary feed. We would suggest people try it, because diagnostics currently are sort of limited for low-grade leaky gut. I know in these obvious cases where we've got very loose feces and poor condition, it's a little bit more obvious. But I would certainly say that even those subtle cases, we're seeing a huge response. Very interesting area, a lot more research that needs to be done. Again, it's just hypothesis, but it's the idea of, well, we don't want to create a hype. Everything's not about the gut microbiome, but there's more and more evidence that inflammation, which is leaky gut, that leakiness in the gut, is certainly a problem across all animal species, and the research is saying it. And there's sort of contributing factors. We, both humans, our pets and our horses, lifestyle changes and increasing stress and changing diets has a big impact on the diversity of the gut microbiome. A narrowing of the diversity of the gut microbiome will have knock-on effects to digestion, immunity, and overall health. Some of the symptoms can be obvious, some of them can be less obvious. Again, performance horses, we probably need to supplement them and support them during periods where there's risk, particularly in competition. We've seen that with race yards and sport horses that are competing, that are trying to get optimized performance. We're seeing very good results on long-term feeding. Just a concept, hypothesis. I'm somewhere, so the hype cycle is here. I think we're at a very interesting phase of the microbiome. It's kind of leveling out. We're understanding a lot more. We do need to do more research. Metabolomics allows us to understand what happens. Metagenomics allows us to understand the different microbes that are involved. Get the basics right is still a key message, but Precision Microbes, certainly for any horse owners or vets, is proven to be a really interesting complementary feed supplement to aid digestion and help, I suppose, with these horses who are during challenging periods or maybe showing symptoms, and we are getting results. I think, as a new company, go to the website and actually just listen to what people are saying. You can't get that many people to make up what they're saying. It really is, for me, we're getting phenomenal results in the equine side. It's really exciting to see maybe where our next level of research is going to be in this space as well. That's it for today. Hype or hypothesis, I don't know, but really interesting space.